I know that in order to run a really strong marathon on the day of the race, I'm going to have to absolutely nail the fundamentals in my training. I don't really worry about the rest after that. In this video, I'm going to explain what those fundamentals are and how I use those fundamentals to go from never having run a race before to running 2:24 in the London Marathon only 3.5 years after I started running. I was 42 years old at the time. Right, so quick disclaimer, these tips I'm sharing, these are what have worked for me. I'm not saying yes, everyone has to go out and do these. I'm just saying this is what's worked for me. I've tested lots of things, I've tried lots of things. I like testing my limits, and so overall I found these things have worked for me, and I'm not saying they're going to work for you. Try them if you want, don't try them, it's up to you. There's so much content online now about the best workouts to do and how to run the fastest 10k, marathon, half marathon, whatever, by doing this special workout. And as I said before in other videos, it's so confusing and there's just too much information out there, there's too much content being produced. And so I just wanted to simplify it down, and that helped me so much. By focusing on the fundamentals, it enabled me just to gradually become faster and become a better marathon runner. And if you look at the very best pro runners out there, it is interesting to look at the workouts they're doing, but we think we can become too focused on those things, and actually we forget that they've been focusing on the fundamentals and the core bits of marathon training for years and years and years, and they're still focusing on the core things now. It's just that the icing on the cake is very often these workouts, but they actually focus day in, day out on the fundamentals. And when I started doing that, everything changed for me. Right, so the first fundamental that is so important for me is long runs. Now, I make sure I do one of these once a week, especially when I'm training for a marathon. It's so important. Running a long run for me is about 2.5 hours, around 35 kilometers. I say 30 to 35 kilometers. I never go full marathon or anything like that, but I always stick to distances that are a bit less, but time-wise about 2.5 hours seems to be good. So I'm on kilometer 23 of the long run now. The last kilometer was 3:43 pace, which is pretty good considering I've hit some hills in the run just now. Average pace overall was 3 minutes 54 per kilometre, and that just helped me build up my endurance, helped me build up my strength, helped me build up an aerobic base. I've got much fitter, and my mental toughness has improved so much. I found it so difficult at the beginning mentally to run these long runs, but actually over time I found it a lot easier. And also over time, it's just my whole body's become stronger. My tendons, my muscles, everything's become stronger, and it's allowed me to run that long run every week and not feel absolutely exhausted. I remember when I first started doing the long runs, I became so tired after the runs that I did normally on a Sunday, and it would just take me 2 or 3 days to recover. But now I find I can recover quite quickly because my body's got used to it. Your body's getting used to being able to run that distance, so in the actual race on race day it's not going to be too difficult because you've done it so many times and your body's actually used to it. But the second fundamental for me is running lots of mileage, pretty much as much mileage as I can take without getting so fatigued and really and injured pretty much. And that I've built up over time, and it's important to build that up over time, as I'm sure you've heard me say and you've heard other people say. I think that it's crucial for building strength, so the more mileage I run, I feel like my body gets stronger, and I think in the latter part of the races that can really help. Also, I think that the more mileage I run, the less strength training I need to do. It's almost like I'm doing strength training by just training my body to be able to take the pounding on the roads. And obviously it's just built up a huge aerobic base, a base of fitness. The more you run, the more fitness you build up, and that just serves you very, very well in the long term. I find that when I'm running lots of mileage, and I have run lots of mileage, it takes a while for that fitness to leave me, whereas if I haven't done that and I have to take a break for whatever reason, an injury or an illness, it takes me longer to get back to full fitness. So there's a big correlation between running a fast marathon and the amount of mileage you do, and the more mileage you do, for me, the faster I am, the quicker I am, the more endurance I have, the better I am. The third fundamental that I focus on is being consistent, and I've banged on about this in the past because I think it's so important, and it really is. When I'm consistent, I'm just a better runner. You get fitter quicker over time. If you keep being consistent, your running fitness just goes up like on a graph like that. You get fitter, you get stronger, you get better, you get faster. The more you can keep consistent over the weeks, the months, the years, I've just found I've become a better runner over time. And instead of worrying about everything else, like the workouts or pretty much anything else in running, focusing on consistency has been the secret for me to get better. And it's one of the fundamentals that I will always focus on, pretty much above everything else. Just consistently getting out day after day, not worrying too much about anything else, just making sure you get out and run. And for me, the fourth and the last fundamental that's really important is running at or a little bit faster than race pace every now and again, just to get your body used to running the pace you're going to run at in the race, in the marathon. Now, for me, I don't run too much race pace running, but when I do, I really feel like it just enables my body to almost like neurologically understand, okay, this is what you're going to be running on race day. And it's always harder when you're in training, when you're running that kind of pace in training, if it's faster or it's even on the pace. So if I can do that in my training, I know that when I get to the race day, it's going to feel a lot easier. You know, you've got the adrenaline going, you should be rested and have tapered before the race. There's often a crowd pushing you along. So it's much easier on the day to run that pace. If you can nail that in training, if you can consistently hit those race paces, I always find that it's so much easier in the race. So it's just a fundamental. I don't think about it too much. Yes, go out and do a session. I'll do a session like 4 times 4 kilometers or 3 times 5 kilometers every now and again, just so I can know what it feels like. And another thing that I did, and what I did before the London Marathon last year, is I ran a half marathon. It was just over a month before London, and that really helped me because it was obviously faster than the marathon pace. So when I actually got to run the marathon, it felt easier. The last race I did was quite a bit faster, so marathon pace was easier, and marathon pace felt very comfortable for me. Another thing you can do is, instead of what I potentially will do this year, is to go and run a half marathon at my marathon pace. I'm not going to worry about potentially getting a PB in the half marathon, but what I'll do is just use it as a way to practice my marathon pace. You in the race, you probably have a closed course, you'll have other people around you. Just a good way to practice running at that pace without worrying about traffic or anything else, pedestrians on your normal route. So by focusing on the fundamentals, it helps me to just stay balanced. I can have a bad training day and it doesn't really matter. I can have a good training day and it doesn't really matter. My training doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be getting myself in the right place to run fast on the day and give myself the confidence to know that I've nailed all the fundamentals of marathon training and I can run fast when it comes to the race. And the more confident I am, the better I feel mentally and the faster I'll be able to run. Thanks so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and like the video. Thanks so much.